Mushoku Tensei Episode 16 has to be the most heavily discussed episode I've seen since the anime started to come out earlier this year. The community is deeply invested in Paul and Rudy's relationship and argument that happened this past weekend. Many are quick to say Paul is at fault since he's asking too much from his son and using his own inferiority complex to push his expectations onto Rudy. It doesn't help that the episode's narrative is stacked against Paul from the very beginning. Since the very early stages of the anime, we have always been following Rudy's perspective, since he is our main character of the story. On top of that, we have found out rather quickly that Paul is an absolute monster and scumbag because of what he did to his wife and family in the earlier episodes. So when you meet up with him many episodes later, people are instantly going to jump onto Rudy's side because of it, even if there's logic behind some of his arguments. He just didn't properly convey what truly needed to be said without hostility. While on the other side of the argument, the people that side with Paul are looking at how Rudy is technically an adult from a previous life, and also he had many chances to write a letter, but he kept delaying it throughout his year-and-a-half journey. Now obviously this is not counting the fact that he was stranded in the middle of nowhere at the start of his journey with Eris, even though we haven't seen every single day from the past year-and-a-half animated, like each mundane day after day activity of just trying to survive, eat, and all that fine shelter. Even though that hasn't been animated, we know it's technically been happening, so that does need to be factored in to the entire journey. We know Rudy has been taking care of Eris day after day to take her back home. As for me, I believe if you saw my video this last weekend, I'm on both sides of the argument. They both poorly convey what is needed to be said to the other, and both had made mistakes in the argument. Paul's inferiority complex and Rudy's misplaced priorities with thinking about Sylvie over his own mother and sisters, which is why I love this episode as much as I do. It depicts a very realistic argument between individuals. When arguments happen in real life, more often than not, the arguments are about really stupid things that are so trivial in the grand scheme of things that it's just like it doesn't even matter, and misunderstandings on top of that to why the argument is even happening to begin with, because most of the time when an argument goes on, one of the parties have no idea why the argument is even happening to begin with, because they just don't even have a full grasp of why the other individual is as angry as they are, which once again, this goes with Paul's inferiority complex. Now, because of how important the argument with Paul and Rudy was, there are some things that were hidden in plain sight that I know for a fact I missed on my first watch, and probably many of you that are currently watching this have missed too. Example, the moment when Norn appears in the tavern, she proceeds to push Rudy off of Paul and calls him a bully. On social media, my friend pointed this out, and it's actually an amazing detail. Rudy became everything he hated from his previous life. He looked like a bully, picking on a worn down and tired father that's been desperately trying to find his family again for over a year. His own sister, not even recognizing him as her brother, shattered what Rudy's dream was back in Core 1 of Mushoku Tensei, to be a great brother to his sisters. We also have Norn's very appearance that looks very clean and well kept in comparison to her father that's weathered and ragged. Norn appears to have brand new clothes and never has to worry about food from what we can see. She doesn't look like in the form of starvation. It doesn't seem like she's hurting for shelter or clothing. So it shows at the very least Paul is taking care of his child Norn the very best that he possibly can. I know some will be definitely quick to say he might be having others in his group taking care of her, and that is indeed entirely possible. However, I believe the detail with Norn's appearance was to show Paul's priorities in comparison to Rudy's priorities. Because when you think about the entire conversation, Rudy was continuously thinking about other things, other people that wasn't his family, while Paul, is thinking about his family, and that's why, his daughter looks as well kept as she is at that moment. Also, shout out for these two bringing this other detail to my attention. Seriously, guys, thank you so much. I love this type of stuff. I really do appreciate it. It's absolutely amazing to have a community that brings discussion like this. It fills me with so much joy, and it's the reason why I love this community as much as I do. But now for the last detail that needs to be discussed. There were preview images that came out earlier this morning on the official Mushoku Tensei site. We see a young Norn being held by Paul. If you look at the clothing, it's very similar to Rudy's clothing he has been in since the very beginning of Mushoku Tensei. It's cute to see these minor details, actually. It can kind of be interpreted as maybe Norn's clothing is hand-me-downs that Rudy grew out eventually. Because let's be honest, if you have siblings or you grew up with siblings siblings, then you know about the famous hand-me-downs that the younger sibling often gets, because usually you have either clothing, toys, maybe a game controller, whatever, that is handed down to the younger sibling because the older sibling is, outgrown that type of, I guess, object. I feel like maybe that is what the images is trying to, interpret, and I feel like also with this image, it's showcasing that Paul is potentially a good father, and I feel like this is what the ending of the latest episode was trying to convey to the audience. But once again, shout out to my friends for constantly having thought-provoking Mushoku Tensei discussions, and you guys in the comments as well. I absolutely love reading through the comments and seeing what you guys are saying. It's a true treat for me, and thank you so much. I really do appreciate everything you guys do in the comment section. It's always fun to just be able to actively read so many great posts and discussion on a series I actually love. Honestly, it reminds me of the great ReZero discussions I've had over the years while reading and watching the anime. Seriously, what a great episode, and what a great series. I cannot wait to watch episode 17 of Mushoku Tensei this upcoming weekend. It fills me with happiness. I get to experience this as an anime only, and I know for a fact light novel readers and web novel readers are having just as much happiness probably, but I'll leave it there for now. If you learned from this video, or if you enjoyed it at all, please leave a like, and if you want more Mushoku Tensei content to appear in your YouTube feed, then think of subscribing. It does help me out a lot. But with that, guys, I love you all, and be safe. Chibi out.